Alright, greetings and welcome to the Badger Cave's West Wing, where our stealthy polecats ferret out the best feels, funnies, and what the fucks to discuss Slam Bam Badger style. That was a burp. Your sinuous hosts for this evening are myself, Supreme Doge in Charge, our polecat punster Hannah, Max, Simpsons kin not jaundiced, and our Anchorilla Scott. We also have our special guest, Sir Ske something. I can't see the whole name. What is it? Sir Skexalot? Sir
Skeksis?
Sir Sket?
It's Kit. It's fine. It's just Kit.
Just Kit? Like Kit. Like that's your name. Like that sounds like something out of a soap opera.
Yeah, Kit is a shortening for Christopher.
Oh, okay. Yeah, so our Black Knight Lego guy, Kit. And Dr. Ryder McCam is not here today because tomorrow is his father's birthday, and he wants to be in some manner of reasonable good shape to meet up with his folks. So, happy birthday, Mr. Daddy Randomercam. And I want to thank you for spooging in your mom and your wife so that you could bring us this gift, Dr. Randomercam. That's my personal thanks. So,
okay, the bar's been set low.
I don't know how to be honest. Okay, so any other way to do it. So this evening we'll be covering the following topics. First, we're going to be looking at the jury that found a Rolling Stone reporter responsible for defaming UVA dean with the gang rape story. Then we'll be looking at, we'll be asking the question, should children have access to porn at age 5? Because somebody did ask this question. Not kidding you. Harvard ends men's soccer team because the men like women there. Nuts. And a tiny story, Hugh Mungus, our savior and one of our favorite dads on the internet, has had a GoFundMe put in place, and he is killing Zarna Joshi with it. So we thought that could be fun. And then and we also have another special guest that just showed up. Hello, Natalie.
Sorry, I haven't had my morning coffee, so I'm still blonde.
No, it's all right. I haven't had mine either. Probably because it's late in the day. But yes, welcome to the stream.
Dear.
What? Was that bad? Did I make a bad joke? Okay. So our bonus story is 7 Reasons So Many Guys Don't Understand Sexual Consent by Crack.com. This could be fun. All right. So, anyway, if you want to listen...
a little rough today, Brian, huh?
Yeah. If you want to listen to this topic, or if you want to enjoy further personalized discussion with the Badgers on select topics, please consider becoming a patron at www.patreon.com/honeybadgerradio. Now we will open up with Max Darrett with the news. You see, I threw you a curveball there. I normally say Scott, but this time I didn't. So, Max.
I'm taking over. I'm moving up in the world.
Moving up.
I gotta sweat it out now.
Tell us about Rolling Stone.
Yep, stay yellow, everybody. Anyways, the saga surrounding the University of Virginia rape scandal is nearly over. Last Friday, a federal court jury concluded that Sabrina Rubin Erdely, a now former Rolling Stone journalist, defamed the former UVA associate dean with malice in her 2014 article. Though Rolling Stone originally tried to argue that they had not acted with malice, the jury ruled otherwise. They cited 2 false statements that Erdely published. The first suggested that Aramo discouraged the purported victim, Jackie, from reporting her allegations. The second suggested a non-reaction when Jackie told Aramo about other allegations of gang rape on the campus. On top of this, the jury cited 4 other statements that Erdely made in interviews following the article's publication. Not only did this whole scandal cost Nicole Aramo her former job, but it was particularly devastating to spend a large part of her life helping victims of sexual assault. The former dean will now be receiving at least $7.5 million in damages, with the possibility for a different amount now that the verdict has been read. As we approach the end of this needless farce, we want to thank Rolling Stone for victims of sexual assault a few decades. Let this story forever be an example of how little tolerance our society has for the acts of rape and sexual assault.
All right. Thank you, Max. Does anybody have any initial thoughts on this Rolling Stone thing? It's been...
I got a bunch of thoughts, but they're kind of long, so
you want to just
I'm
come
going to
back
save
to
them.
this?
Yeah, I was going to say the same thing. This is going to be a good discussion.
Yeah. I got some hot opinions on this one.
I'll just say for now, much like the election, thank God it's nearly over.
There you go.
All right, so that's cool. We'll come back to this one. So next, I guess, Scott, do you want to talk about why children should have access to porn at age 5? Let me prime that up here. Okay, this is from the Express. Children should be given access to pornography from the age of 5, report claims. Go on.
This is pretty interesting stuff. Online porn is corrupting children by normalizing violence against women. Therefore, the government should expose children as young as 5 to porn. UK Labour MP Sarah Champion recommends in Dare to Care... Wait, what is Dare to Care? Okay. Miss Champion, apparently blissfully unaware of irony, is suggesting that rather than allow children to encounter porn under their own reconnaissance? Okay, reconnaissance. We'll go with that. They should be forced to watch it in classrooms and told they're watching the violent exploitation of women. This, she says, will prevent children from being subject to grooming by ever-present shadow file. What? Ever-present? Is that right? Shadow file? That pops out of our computer screen the moment the children access porn. Despite the report promoting a series of vague buzzwords which should have been enough reassurance, Killjoy Carol Cooper pointed out that we don't expose children to pornography for a reason. BBC4 radio journalist Jenny Murray endorsed the Exposing Children to Porn initiative by suggesting children could learn to analyze porn like a Jane Austen novel.
Wow. All right.
Yeah. I got some hot opinions on this.
You got hot opinions on this too? Hannah?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, same here. Same here.
Okay. This is real shit, guys. Real shit.
Yeah.
Okay.
People said this out loud to other adult people, and they were like, yeah, this is a great idea.
Yeah, exactly. We should write an article about it.
Fucking like, yeah, Scoob, that's a great idea, zoinks. Get the fuck out of here. You fucking idiots.
All right, let's continue down this fucking bleach, the bleach hole.
It's too deep.
Yeah. And Max, tell us about Harvard. If you're playing with the mute button, Max, or are you playing with my feelings?
I think Max died.
Oh, there he is.
He's dead to us. You're dead to us, Max.
No, he's back. Max,
Can you hear?
come back to the light. I can hear you.
Yeah, Carolyn.
Max? Max? Dun, 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 dun. All right, well then you know what? I'll read it. And
We're doing it live. We're doing it live.
He dropped out. So, okay. All right, so Harvard ends men's soccer team season over ranking female players. Let's do a quick poll, shall we? Max, are you back? Max? Don't be offended. I'm just going to read your thing because we got to keep going. Follow men, women, and Simpsons kin. Or fellow. Sorry, I already fucked it up. If you have participated in the act of ranking the opposite sex, be it with a 1 to 10 scale or level of strokeability or schlickability, I think I just want to add that in for purposes of equality, please say aye. All others say nay. If this unscientific makeshift polling does not sway your opinion, then look no further than movies such as She's Just Not That Into You or episodes of South Park like The List. The act of ranking is a perfectly normal behavior that both sexes engage in. Granted, if you're going to do this, take all precautions to make sure you don't get caught. Unfortunately for the men's soccer team at Harvard University, they got caught hairy-handed. A 2012 document uncovered last October by the Harvard Crimson student newspaper rated the attractiveness of recruits on the women's team, along with lewd comments. An example of a comment is as follows, quote, "She looks like the kind of girl who both likes to dominate and likes to be dominated," end quote. Oh, the humanity. Get your fainting couches. On top of this, each woman was assigned a hypothetical sexual position and nickname. Members of the men's team called it their quote-unquote scouting report and circulated it online. Naturally, Harvard Athletics now has to partner with the university's Office of Sexual Assault Prevention in order to educate men about the quote-unquote seriousness of these behaviors and the general standard of respect and conduct that is expected. On top of this, the men's soccer team must forfeit the remainder of the season, with their coach, Pieter Leher, openly endorsing this decision. Up until now, the team has been in first place in the Ivy League rankings. So, that's the short of it. I want to just say that this is really fucked up. And I guess we could come back to this too. There seems to be a theme I'm seeing here, though.
Hot opinions! Hot opinions!
So we can come back to this one as well. And hopefully Max seems to be having a lot of internet problems, so hopefully he'll be back in to add his own 3 points. All right. Last one. I'm going to read this one because I wrote it. So, there you go. Humongous, and I also want to add some additional info you might find interesting. Humongous GoFundMe put in place, creeping on 60,000. H3H3 Productions, a large YouTube channel with over 2.5 million subs and a lot of silly comedy, had Humongous, real name Rudy Pantoja, on for an interview after the incident involving Hugh and the third wave intersectional feminist bigoted crazy person Zarna Joshi. The goal was simply to get Hugh's story. Following this, Zarna had made a short series of completely insane videos where she planned on using her newfound infamy to make money at a crowdfunding site, surprise, surprise, called youcaring.com, so that she can smash the patriarchy with stacks of $100 bills, apparently, and also fight against internalized oppression. H3H3 Productions called Hugh in an effort to see how he was doing. Just a casual call, not online. And Hugh reported that while he is doing fine in his life, he does have some health and financial problems that concern him. H3H3 suggested that Hugh open a crowdfunding site to ask for aid, but Hugh said he didn't want to do anything like that, preferring to deal with his issues in his own way where he can, quietly in private society. H3H3 Studios then took the liberty of setting up a crowdfunding site on behalf of Humongous, since Hugh didn't want to do that himself. Hugh was at over $30,000 when Zarna was reaching at about $300, even though the Hugh fund was set up after the Zarna one was. But there's more. Some interesting things that I thought you guys should know. So here's Humongous's thing. What happened was, I better share screens so you guys can see it in here too. So give me a second here. Share screen. Application window. Bam, 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 bam.
Doing it live.
Doing it live. Yeah, it's fine. I'm pretty quick. All right. So Hugh is now at 57,133. I wonder if I refresh this page if it's went up, because I just said it. Yeah, he's already at over $61,000. Okay, and this wasn't something that he set up himself. H3H3 did it for him because he didn't want to. He's a truck driver. He's not a rich guy. He's also got health problems, and he's also been getting a lot of bullying and stuff online from Zarna's brown shirts. So he's been going through a lot of stuff. And the guys at H3H3 set this up for him. The interesting thing is originally this was on You Caring, and now it's on GoFundMe. If you see that, what the reason why I wanted to point that out is apparently go back a little bit. Maybe this is apparently the because of the You Caring, which is a different thing. It's like, I think it's like a GoFundMe for people who are the victims of online bullying. And Zarna Joshi set up a You Caring, and her goal was $1,000 a month for existing. and she was at about $300 or something like that. And then H3H3, maybe they just did it to see if Hugh could make more money. Maybe they just wanted to counter her, whatever. But they made another Hugh carrying account for Hugh Mungus. And Hugh was making more money. He was at $30,000 or something like that. He was doing way more than she was. And Zarna, I guess Zarna and there was like some fighting going on between Zarna's camp and Hugh Mungus's camp, maybe, or whatever. And so what ended up happening was Hugh Caring removed Rudy Pantoja, that's Hugh Mungus. They removed his fundraiser due to the controversy. But if you look at this tweet, and this is the thing I wanted to show you, by Hugh Caring, it says, "We've removed the Zarna Joshi and Rudy Pantoja fundraisers due to the controversies and bullying that they have incited on Hugh Caring. However, at the time that this tweet was put up, which was the 7th, is it the 7th of November? So yesterday, apparently, even though there's bitching here, this woman, Pakatomi, had a link to Zarna's, and it was still up. And so hers was up a little bit longer than his was. And then when she brought it up, and she said, "What do you mean Zarna's is still there?" Then 8 minutes after she made that tweet, they took it down. So Zarna doesn't even have a Hugh Caring anymore, and neither does Hugh Mungus. But Hugh has a GoFundMe, and he's at 61,582. Let's take a look and see if it's increased.
At least they're consistent, and they follow the "what's good for the goose is good for the gander" kind of scenario on this. So
that's basically the last story. It's a really small one, but I thought I would share, and I thought it was interesting that Hugh was doing better in terms of financial support. I think it says something. That there are more people that have common sense than sometimes you can be on the internet and feel like it's just really there's like a sense of dread that there's this much stupidity in the world and this much of a lack of common sense and this much of a lack of understanding the difference between someone who's making an accusation of being bullied, who is clearly being the bully, and making ridiculous claims of sexual assault, and the people who believe it. The people who really look at it rationally. And I guess Hugh is getting a lot more support than I would have expected. So he's doing better than Zarna also, even though he didn't ask for this money. So, which I think that's a good thing. That's a refreshing feeling. That's what I'm saying. So anyway, that's it for that story. Does anybody have any other short thoughts about the Hugh Mungus story at all? Or should we just go back to the...
I was just going to say real quick that I was actually kind of surprised that Ethan from H3H3 got involved in this. I was kind of like, wait, what? Because this is a pretty divisive issue. So I mean, good on him for actually taking a stand about something and actually trying to do something positive for somebody when we're talking about the Zarna woman who is just trying to tear this guy down. Dude. And just needlessly going after him. So I applaud Ethan for actually taking the initiative and trying to give somebody a hand. I'm all down for that. So
Zarna's like a living Maleficent. She's so fucking wicked. It's not even funny.
She's a banshee?
Yeah.
She was howling at him like a banshee in that fucking video the entire time. I'm being sexually molested. I was like, whoa, calm down, lady. Jesus.
Right.
Yeah. She's a little bit bonkers, I'd say. So.
All right. Does anybody else have any thoughts, or should we go? We can move on to Melbourne. Melbourne. We'll move on to Melbourne.
Melbourne, thank you very much.
So, you guys, Kit and Natalie, you guys had the Australian premiere screening of the Red Pill. Tell me, how did it go? What do you think?
We had some technical and logistical problems. I'm sure you heard. Did you guys see the review that that lady put up about what it was like to be at the Melbourne premiere?
Mm-mm.
Oh, she.
Well, give us the short version anyway, because a lot of our listeners probably don't know.
Okay, we had to invoke some fairly serious security. We sent out private SMSs to the people that had registered, telling them to meet at the park, and we had a link to the secret agent signals on how to recognize each other when you met at this particular park. I hear Hannah laughing. She's seen the video, I assume.
I don't know if that's.
I think there's me. You're doing a little cloak and dagger there, though. I like that.
Oh yeah,
it was pretty cool, actually.
You like that secret handshake?
Yes, that was pretty cool.
Yeah.
And then we marked them off on we checked their email addresses and marked them off. Then we handed them off to our security detail. Summer was one of our security detail, and she led them in groups of 10 or 12 to the actual venue. But the park was closed. It had been closed the day before and dug up by the council. So with 2 hours to go, we had to redirect them to a train station, which was tricky. There was only one minor incident at the train station where somebody had pegged us for what we were doing and come and told us that we weren't allowed to do that and that we should go away. And I don't know how they spotted us. I mean,
wait, you weren't allowed to do what? Meet at a public train station?
Well, one of our guys was the head of Men's Rights Sydney, and he was wearing a big T-shirt that said Men's Rights Sydney, which kind of overturned the clandestine nature of the meeting.
And the plot a bit here.
Yeah, this guy looked like a second-year university student and took exception to men's rights activists being anywhere.
Oh God,
that was fun, but that was a minor incident.
So, did you have any reason to suspect that there was a, anything was going to happen, and that's why you raised security? Like, what made you think you needed to do that? Was there some clue?
Yes, there was an online petition in Australia for people who wanted to protest the Red Pill. They actually said they were going to find out the new location, that they had a mole inside. And, I mean, they may have had a mole inside, but the mole would only have known the location to meet up 2 hours beforehand. And it's very hard to organize a group of people to get interstate or across the state to get to the place to... And even if they got to the train station... even the mole inside, if there was a mole inside, wouldn't have known the actual location until Summer had led them to the location. So we were pretty solid.
Jesus, this is crazy. Like, it's like you did you have to smuggle men inside of buses to get them to this place? Is that what you had to do?
Well,
did you have
men and women?
Men and women. But you kept them apart, right? Because we don't want any rapes happening. I mean, come on.
Oh no, that was all sorted out. We had rape crews online.
It's kind of funny, listening to the links that we have had to go to get people the opportunity to see a movie that, among the other things it talks about how far feminists have gone in the past to keep the men's rights message from getting out, and it is all because of feminist protest and feminist opposition. It's been feminists right down the line that have opposed people being able to see this movie, that have opposed men's activism in public, that have opposed men having the right to discuss men's issues without feminist control of that discussion, right down the line. And then they want to sit around and tell us that they don't hate men. Yeah. I'm sorry, but the more they do this, actually I'm not sorry, fuck you feminists, the more you guys do this, the more you do this, the more you convince us that, yeah, feminism is about hating men. It's the primary factor. It's the primary characteristic of feminism. That you want control over human rights issues so that you can reserve human rights considerations for women and girls to the exclusion of men and boys.
I had a big awakening when I started researching domestic violence, and because I was wondering, what is that all these different feminist groups that all disagree with each other, but they all have one common theme, I thought about, is it that, well, it's clearly that they don't want equality, because if they did that, they would want to help men who are victims of domestic violence. And then I thought, is it that they want to help women? Well, I says, well, if they were, then they would point out that lesbian couples have the highest rates of domestic violence, and they would try to help those women. And it is really it is just about hurting men. That's the primary basis of all feminism.
Yeah, and that's, like, they base everything they do on that, and then they capitalize on it, and they use it to launch themselves into higher levels of political power and to stir shit with the public, and so on, to build themselves a whole network of professions that the base for those professions is demonizing men and using a victim narrative, about women to make money. And it's really all they do. And then the minute the men and boys want to talk about, hey, these things are happening to men and boys, and these remedies could be applied so that these things would stop happening, and then men and boys would not be oppressed. Men and boys would not be discriminated against. Feminists go apeshit. They get pissed off. They protest. They scream and yell and throw childish little temper tantrums. And they call it misogyny when you have compassion for men and boys.
Summer, you were on my security detail. What were your impressions of the Red Pill premiere?
I personally loved it. I was more sort of, I felt really protected, if anything, from even the men that came up to view them. I was standing outside when everybody else was up at the reception area before the premiere started, and 2 of the viewers stayed with me, plus the security, just in case. So for these misogynists to think that, I suppose to think less of me and degrade me, if anything, they held me in a higher pedestal of completely surrounding me with complete and utter respect.
Natalie, can I ask, what is your, what do you do in terms of the security? Like, what's your function? What did you do?
I have no security background. I'm just a bitch and don't let anybody walk over me.
All right. So just a badass. I got you.
That pretty much makes you suited for security.
So like, what are your qualifications? Like, are you like immune to poison? Do you know MMA? Like, do you have you figured out how to channel your chi? Like, I'm just curious. Like, why you said this is what I want to do? Is it just the bitchiness powers? It could be that. That's fine.
The bitchiness power is first and foremost. I was kind of born with that gene. I have a 17-year-old son, and throughout him growing up, when he was first born, it was like, yeah, but a boy, he's going to have an easy life. And then through the process, I started learning better and swallowed the red pill, for lack of a better term, as he was getting older, realizing he isn't going to have an easy life because he is a male, and he is a white male.
Oh, yeah.
And I started to realize that if I don't do something for my son, then no one's going to do it. So if I have to do it myself, I'll change the world so it's easier. In my son's life, it's going to be easier, and he's not going to be seen lesser than because he is a white male.
Yeah, I notice that's a big thing a lot of times with women that end up on this sort of side of the discussion. They have sons. Yeah.
Hey, Kit, let me ask you something real quick. What you guys had to find a new venue. Did you actually find another theater, or was it like did you have to go somewhere else? Because I know you had problems initially with the first theater. It was just like, oh no, we can't do this. Oh gosh, go away. So
yeah, it looked very much like the first theater was in fact looking for an excuse to cancel.
Right. Yeah.
And that the petition was merely just a convenient excuse, because when the next petition came out with 4 or 5 times the number of people, they weren't going to reinstate it. It wasn't a petition. But we called around every theatre, they had only given us 11 days to the deadline, and we couldn't change the date because a lot of people were coming over from interstate and overseas. They'd already booked tickets and they had hotel rooms and everything. And so we had 11 days, and a lot of the places were just sold out. Some places said, look, we really sympathise with you and would love to help, but we've got bookings on that day. But there was one private club, a really nice private club, that said, yeah, absolutely, we'll host you. We sympathise. Our head of security there has been through the family court 3 times. He's absolutely on board.
So he had some personal experience with some men's rights issues.
Oh yeah.
Oh, wow. Okay.
and all the staff were incredibly professional and very helpful.
So it went off without a hitch then in the end.
Oh, from there, yeah, kind of. We more people turned up. People that had bought tickets had said, "Here are 3 or 4 of my friends. Can we buy tickets at the door?" So we actually had to add more seats at the last minute. So that was pretty good.
Nice. Yeah, it's a nice little boost there. Great.
Yeah, but I've got to point out that this really wasn't just Men's Right Melbourne. David from Men's Rights Melbourne. We also had a very helpful international co-conspirator called Will I Am, who was the one who donated the license to show the screening in Australia, which was incredibly generous.
Nice.
And we had Adrian from Men's Rights Sydney, and I'm from MHRA Connect in South Australia, and so it was quite a large international contingent, and Summer and a couple of other assistants, the team. So I just wanted to give thanks to all the people that did a lot of work behind the scenes.
So what was the one more thing? What was the overall response once it was over? Like, did you kind of take a barometric reading of the crowd, as it were, and see what they were all thinking? Like, what were people talking about afterwards?
Well, it's interesting. I was expecting more men's rights activists there. Most of the people there seemed to be people who were interested in free speech. They donated and they came along because they don't like censorship. Mm-hmm. And so we got a whole bunch of blue pillars who got to see the Red Pill.
Nice.
Right.
That was excellent. I was really pleased with that. I did a little shill for my site and for another site called Equal, which is coming up soon, and said if anyone wants to help out with the final beta test before it goes live, come and talk to us. And a couple of dozen people came up afterwards and shook hands and signed up, and it was really positive. It was excellent.
Excellent.
I was going to ask you how the turnout was, and what you personally thought of the film.
The turnout, we had 115 email addresses that signed up, and some of those had 2s and 3 people on their ticket, and so we set out seats for about 135, and then we had the extra ticket sales at the door, so it looks like it may have been about 160, 170. Mm-hmm. Which is more than twice what we had arranged for at the Palace Cinema, so that was good.
That's really good, yeah.
The feminists did us an incredible favor by protesting the film. That was just magnificent. We got more than twice the number. We got stories in every newspaper all across Australia, and even a couple of stories in London newspapers. It was just magnificent. We could not have gotten better publicity. So, feminists, if you're listening, absolute thanks. That was really great. Cheers.
Yeah. That was actually the next thing I was going to ask you was, did any press show up?
I don't know. I'm very much an introvert, and I was hiding behind.
Sorry.
There was the main meet and greet room, which had the bar and the cocktail tables and the air hockey tables and the media wall and everything, and then there was the screening room, which was where I was hiding most of the time because that many people made me a little bit nervous.
All right, Natalie, did you experience anything different, or is it about the same?
Let me say I'm more of an introvert.
Oh, okay.
I was happy to stay downstairs whilst everybody else was socialising, unlike Kit, who had his, what I call his camouflage, very loud shirt on to stand out.
It was the shirt storm shirt. People needed to recognise me to come up to me and sign up.
Oh.
It was a talking point. But I just stand by the fact, even it was the complete opposite, not from what I was expecting, from what the feminazis would have referred to as, you're in a room full of men and they're all misogynist. And it's like, actually, they were all gentlemen in the old classic term of they showed me so much respect. So, I had no controversy at all. I kind of loved it. But I was looking forward to the controversy on the other hand because we were already in pump for it. Like, come on, bring it on.
Yeah.
And it wasn't there.
Have you guys seen any? have you guys seen any reviews, in Australia and about the film?
Only that one girl online who got her review up in freaking minutes after the show finished. I was very impressed.
And did it really well too. Like,
Yeah.
it was very well done.
What was the response in the review?
Did she hate it?
No, she loved it. She was horrified that level of security had to be gone to show a freaking documentary. But she thought, as I think we all did, that the movie was. I can understand why the feminists are scared of this movie. It is a very powerful movie, and it puts its case forward incredibly well. And it looked like that there was enough material. I don't know what Cassie cut out of it. It must have been hard because it looked like there was enough material there for like 8 hours.
Oh no, Cassie cut out tons of material. There's a lot on the cutting room floor that she didn't use, but she's thinking about ways to use some of it for other things. Like she wants to upload like the full Big Red interview. At least that was what she was saying, like when we talked to her, because what she put up there was just, it's tiny compared to what she had. But she thought, it would be hilarious to put the whole thing up there. So, Misandry for life.
The audience broke up laughing when Big Red was sitting there vibrating with hatred and anger and saying, men's rights activists are just angry people. And the audience kind of broke up laughing.
Maybe they should start their own movement, which they did. Yeah.
Is that like, I'm not yelling?
I'm not angry. You're the one that's angry. Could you be angry?
Oh, the whole audience broke up at that point. That was good.
That was good. That's that. You know what? I noticed that that's a consistent reaction. 2 moments where people lose it, or at least have to react to what they're seeing. One is Big Red, and the other one is Karen in the bar. And those are always the moments that everyone flips out on. So I'm glad that honey badgers can have an impact in the film.
Yeah. I thought there would be more honey badgers.
Well, there is a lot more footage of the honey badgers from the first ICMI, but again, that was cut out. She just had to cut some things out.
Yeah. And
also, she's working with, the reason why she had so much material is that she'd been studying the MRM for 2 years or 2 years and change. So this is just 2 hours out of 2 years of, exploring.
I know. It was obvious that there was at least 8 hours worth of story there. And I was just thinking that she must have been in tears in the cutting room saying, I love this bit, but there's no time for it.
Yeah. Well, no, I'm really glad. Do you know if there's going to be any other showings in Australia? Do you know if people are trying to make plans to give it more sort of exposure in other parts of the continent?
I believe that there's something going up in Sydney soon. But one of the big things that was being talked about after the screening was trying to gain crowdfunding to get the show classified in Australia, because you can't show a film that's unclassified in Australia. Because we'd like to put pressure on the government to show it on our ABC, the Australian Broadcasting Network, and have it shown on TV here, because the feminists would go nuts, which would guarantee that everybody heard about it, and then the whole nation could see it. That would, I don't know how Cassie feels about that, but that was the talk. Everyone was saying more blue pillars need to see this, more blue pillars need to see this. That's what everyone was saying, and so I think that might be the next way to go.
It hit. I know it hit close to home with a few gentlemen who had suffered through domestic violence. I missed about 20 minutes of the film through one having to walk out, and I sat with them and talked them through it. And I know a tiny bit of his story through a previous meeting with him, and what he went through was atrocious. So it actually hit home to a lot of people, because it was ringing bells and it brought up open wounds.
Well, yeah, no, there's some very powerful stuff. I don't know if you guys know, but the there's a story of a man in the film whose son was taken from him, and his ex-wife had intended to use, I don't know if you remember this story, but she was intending to use him use the man's son against him, and she tried to make him obese, and she tried to take away his visitation and all that. Well, I don't know if you know, but they did get reunited, and they actually came to the LA premiere together.
That's fantastic. Yeah, I heard about
brilliant.
Yeah. So we got to see them there, and that worked out well. For those of you guys who haven't seen the film yet, it's one of the it's a great story that's in there, and it really kind of like lets you know how messed up it is for dads who want custody of their sons. That we don't acknowledge that women have the capacity to be wicked, or at least that people don't want to believe it, and how important sons are, how important fathers are. So it's a good part of the film.
Yeah.
Anyway, does anybody else have any other questions for our guests about the Melbourne show? Melbourne. Otherwise, we can go into the discussion portion of the other stories, and you guys can stay if you want to.
Thank you.
All right. So I guess the lack of response means let's move on. So let's go to the Rolling Stone thing. Scott, you're chomping at the bit.
Oh,
so I guess.
Oh, yeah, actually, I am. Well, all right. This is pretty important on a lot of levels. We've seen over the last few years, specifically, where the media has no compunction about lying, just making things up out of whole cloth. So this is kind of great on, like, and I know a lot of people will be like, but wait, it's going to impinge on free speech and da 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 da. But I don't think that's going to be the case. I think with the UVA ruling, this is going to lead to more accountability for newspapers. If I'm not mistaken, there's some sort of right for the press, right? Well, newspapers, but yeah, for the press, for news in general, or quote unquote news. But I think I believe there's because a friend of mine, a British friend of mine, he runs a website, and he was legally not allowed to say things that weren't true or were inflammatory or something. I can't remember exactly how it worked. So he always wanted like people that were friends in other countries that the laws didn't apply to write like, certain kinds of stories that might be seen as potentially illegal or whatever it was. So it's kind of like they have this thing where it's like a truth in advertising kind of thing, and it applies to the news. And apologies if I'm totally butchering what I'm trying to say about that for any British folks that are listening. But basically, I think this is probably a really good stepping stone towards the idea of truth in advertising when it comes to news. I don't think it'll be a problem where it's going to be impinging on anybody's First Amendment rights or freedom of speech or anything like that. But I think there needs to be a certain amount of accountability, because we saw what happened with this case. We saw how people were ready to fucking lynch these guys and castrate them, calling for them for chemical castration and having protests and going after these people where there was literally no evidence for this. This became an emotional issue where people let their rational faculties just shut the fuck down and turn this into a complete mess. So I think this is probably a very important moment in our history, in our collective history.
I hope so.
Whereby, yeah. Well, that's the hope. Yeah, that is the hope. Whereby, I hope that we can come to a consensus that there needs to be some sort of whatever it is. There needs to be a level of accountability where people just can't make shit up like this.
Yeah.
Where either it be editorial or it be be written into law, where there has to be, truth in advertising standards.
Yeah.
It is written into law to a degree.
I think it's more of a tacit kind of thing.
Well, it's not, though. It's just that there are very specific elements to... In the U.S., if you want to allege libel in a court against a journalistic outlet, you have to... And then, like, this case meets the standards for this. You have to prove the plaintiff... or the plaintiff must prove that the defendant made false and defamatory statements concerning the plaintiff. Well, that's provable. Second, the plaintiff must prove the defendant made an unprivileged publication to a third party. Well, that's provable. I mean, anytime something gets published, it's an unprivileged publication to a third party. Anytime it gets published in a news outlet, the plaintiff has to prove that the publisher acted at least negligently. They don't have to prove malice. All they have to prove is that you did not do your due diligence in researching. And that's been proved in this case. And in some cases, the plaintiff must prove special damages. Now, I don't know of any cases offhand where trauma from this, something like this, has been the only thing used to sue for damages. But in other liability cases where somebody has done something and another person has gotten hurt before it, emotional trauma has been used to sue for damages. And in cases where there's other damages, emotional trauma has been used to inflate it. So if you humiliate someone in a publication and you are lying, or you don't do due diligence, like if you publish a rumor about somebody and you never contact them to find out if what you're saying about them is true, or you never make any effort. And that's why you see a lot of publications when they publish a news story about an individual and they haven't got a quote from that individual, you'll see a lot of them that they didn't respond to requests for contact. That's a CYA statement right there. We asked them and they didn't answer us. Right. So we didn't get this. It's not that we're omitting the other side of the story. We just didn't get the other side of the story because they won't answer us,
Where they say by the time this went to press, we still hadn't received an answer.
Yeah, and then the other way that a publication can cover their butts is by if they publish something and they find out it's false, by publishing the truth, their correction, as with as much promotion as they published the falsehood. So if they publish a front page story that says that something, or a prominent story, a top of the website story, whatever, it says that somebody has done something terrible, and then they find out that not only was there not proof, but now there's evidence that the person didn't do what they said that the person did. If they put that story in the same level of prominence in the top of the page or in the front page, that can go towards covering their butts in court. It may not protect them. It still may not protect them because they're still, if they didn't do their due diligence and if there were damages, they can still be in trouble. But it is legislated in the U.S. You are not allowed to do what the Rolling Stone did without consequences, and they are facing consequences. I would be very hesitant to add anything on top of that would give the government the power to come in and say, you can't say that because we deem it untrue. Because you have this problem where, like you've seen, with the Hillary Clinton campaign, the degree of corruption and media collusion that has come out. It's very dangerous to give a government entity the power to say, we deem that unsayable. You can't say that. If somebody's been wronged and they've had damages that they can come forward and prove, then they can apply those consequences. And I think it's a lot better to leave it that way. And it still creates an incentive for a publication to do better than the Rolling Stone did. And I'll bet you that going forward, the Rolling Stone is going to be a bit more cautious than they were before. We've seen that with the Rolling Stone. We've seen that with Gawker. And there's cases going back. There was one, I was in high school. I did a report on one where the National Enquirer screwed up with Carol Burnett, where they published something false about her. And she won a lawsuit based on them not doing due diligence and them publishing an untruth. And she didn't, I don't think she had to prove financial damages so much as that it was detrimental to her career, her future prospects. So, yeah, there's definite consequences for this. It is written into law, and it should be the way it is. I mean, you should be able to sue if somebody does this to you.
Mm-hmm.
And, I do applaud the ruling.
Yeah, I mean, I stand corrected on that point, and I appreciate that, Hannah. Thank you for that. But I guess my point is we see, in the news on an almost daily basis things that are just flatly lies, and that, that are things that are just complete untruths, to invoke something that's happened within the last 2 years. We've seen, I guess Gamergate isn't probably the best example just because it's not a specific person generally, but, it's like, I guess to me it seems like there should be a checks and balance on that where, you can't say things that aren't true, but people do it all the time though, so.
Well, I wonder if anybody has filed truth in advertising complaints against any of these publications that have filed or that have published demonstrably false things, because truth in advertising is something that usually doesn't get enforced unless a complaint is filed.
Right.
So, if you've got somebody advertising, for instance, that this is where you get the truth, and then you can prove that they have several stories published on their site that are patently false. Yeah, and you can prove it's patently false. Well then, file a complaint. They're advertising that they've. Now, again, you're dealing with a situation where I think with a business you have to prove that there was money involved. They were selling you something, and they advertised it as being something that it was not, and they were charging for the thing they were advertising it to be. So this may work better against publications that you've bought advertising from, or publications that you have to pay to read. If it's a publication that's on the internet for free and you didn't buy ads from it, you might not have as much recourse.
Yeah, and then the freedom of speech defense, which is often brought up by the journalists, I don't think that's applicable. I think that's just them, trying to. That's a weak defense. It's just not. It's not very good, because when you are, when you're inaccurate, when you're lying, when you're trying to get the scoop, so you cut corners, you rush, because you're trying to make that money, and you fuck up, then you should be called on it. Period. What's up? What was that, Scott? Some story you just said.
Breaking news: 1 dead, multiple people shot near a zoo polling station.
Oh shit, son.
Jeez.
I gotta look at this now.
Yeah.
All right.
Los Angeles County Sheriff's Captain John Scroggins said police were dealing with at least one suspect who was heavily armed.
Heavily armed officials.
Wow.
1 person was killed and at least 3 others were wounded today, at an active shooting near a polling place in Azusa. Where's Azusa?
L.A.
Oh, it's L.A.
Los Angeles.
Okay.
Somewhere around there.
Los Angeles County Sheriff's Captain Jeff Scroggins said police were dealing with at least 1 suspect who was heavily armed. Few details were released about the shooting, which occurred sometime after 2 p.m. in a residential neighborhood in the area of 4th and Orange Avenue. I was just in L.A. 2 weeks ago. Said Officer Jerry Wilson of the Azusa Police Department. I'm just looking to see if there's any other details. It doesn't look like they have a lot of news right now. It's very volatile and critical. Willison declined to provide the location of the shooting for the safety of the officers and victims. The Azusa police urged residents to stay out of the area and asked all residents to shelter in place. It was unclear whether any officers were injured in the shooting. Los Angeles County Sheriff's Department said they were assisting police. Azusa Union School District issued a lockdown of Slauson Middle and Mountain View Elementary at about 2:15 p.m. Nearby daycare center and preschool was also locked down. No info.
Wow.
Okay. Oh, wait, updates. I guess the article.
It's just saying what
updates. Yeah, what
Yeah.
they've added. But it doesn't look like there's anything in there yet. All right, well, I mean, what are you gonna? You know what? That's less than I expected. Sadly enough, it's fewer
one
crazy
commenter-
incidents than I expected. What was that, Hannah?
One commenter pointed out that the article says the polling station happened to be nearby. It didn't actually. Did the article actually say it was at the polling station?
No, it was near polling station.
So they don't
may not
actually
have anything to do
know
with
if it
it.
had anything to do with polling, just that there was somebody who who engaged in an active shooting near a polling station, a school, and a preschool.
The polling station could have been the school.
Yeah,
'Cause
that's
when
true.
I went to vote today, the voting took place in the school.
Yeah, I went to a
Right.
school to vote, too.
Yep.
All right, well, can't say anything
Well, that
else about
shows how well gun laws work. They had a gun right there next to a polling station and a daycare and a school, which might have all been the same place, but
it. All right.
that's illegal.
Sorry to derail. I just thought that was kind of important.
No,
Yeah, that
man,
is
fair
definitely
enough.
important.
Yeah.
Well, we'll have to wait and see what news comes out afterwards. If this is as likely to have something to do with the election as it is unlikely at this point.
Right.
So,
And it's interesting because there were threats that were written about. There were news stories about threats, to have terrorist activities and things like that. And so far, and it's 7 p.m. Eastern now. So far, there's been nothing but this story. So hopefully, the whole rest of the night is like that. There's nothing.
Yeah. Hopefully, there's calm.
I think the overall, it's, again, this is without going, because I really didn't want to talk about the election, just because everyone's talking about it. It's not because I have a personal feeling about it that is negative. I don't. I think there's actually a great deal of nihilism and apathy surrounding this election, and I don't think it's necessarily as warranted as people believe, but I don't think that there's a lot of negativity. I think most people are just going to the polls. And I mean, when I went, nobody was there. Nobody was angry. Nobody was sad. They were just doing their thing. And I think that's the case for most people. I just think the internet creates a microcosm that feels bigger than it really is. But I wouldn't sweat it. So
This is the first time in my life that I've ever been insanely pleased to have to wait in line. I was thrilled to see how many people showed up to vote today. And the election, the whole thing's been just nuts, in the last year. So it's been nuts, absolutely nuts. But if that's what it takes to get people to the polling places, okay, we can be nuts. And people actually pay attention and participate. That's a good thing.
Yep. You want to get nuts? Let's get nuts.
Here we go.
So, any other thoughts on this Rolling Stone thing, or can we move on to children and porn? Because I know that we're all chomping at the bit to talk about that.
There's a couple things I wanted to point out with the Rolling Stone thing, because there's been a lot of discussion about various aspects of this, and it's not to disparage the effect that it has on real rape victims, but the real victims here are the people who were libeled. And that is the school, that is the dean, and that's the guys at the frat that were accused of something that they didn't do. And I'm sure that they've been through hell over this, and there are still people, you can prove conclusively that this did not happen, and there are still people who are using it as an example of rape culture and disparaging these people who have done nothing. They've done nothing wrong at all. All they were was a target, and yet they're the ones that get they're the ones that get criticized the most. And this is actually a huge thing. It has a huge effect on a person's life when he or she faces a false accusation. And the bigger the accusation, the bigger that effect is. And it's not just a matter of whether they face legal repercussions or social repercussions. There are psychological things that happen when you get accused of being a monster. When you get accused of doing something absolutely terrible, because they weren't just accused of, like the stories that have come out with the guys that have been accused of not stopping when somebody passed out, which is shitty and stupid. And I'm not going to say that it's not rape to take advantage of somebody that has passed out, because it is. but they were accused of active, malicious, willful violence that was brutal and damaging. They were accused of throwing a woman down on broken glass and raping her on broken glass under her back. And this is, you gotta understand, this is not just something that you go through and it doesn't have any impact on you. There's like lifelong. It was a guy that I saw through the 7 years in hell case. And the case has been over for quite a while, and he's still dealing with symptoms of post-traumatic stress disorder from this, and he probably will for years to come. It's changed his perception of the people around him. It's changed his perception of women. It's changed his perception of the police and the court system. It's made going out and doing things in the world outside of his house different for him, probably for the rest of his life. So it's not just a minor thing that this happened. It's not that, like I said, it's not that I'm downplaying the idea that people won't believe real victims, which really, I don't think this affects that, because if you can prove something happened, you can prove it happened. You're going to be believed in court if you can prove something happened. But it's very, very, deplorable that a publication would do this. I can't think of a better word to describe it. It's disgusting.
Well, what's even more disgusting, though, Hannah, is that after the fact, even when after it was proved that these things didn't happen, we still had women, we still had feminists going on news shows saying that it was good that this happened because it brings a light to the women's issue of rape. And I forget who it was, but there was one of the writers from The Guardian. She was an American writer for The Guardian. It wasn't Valente, which you would think it would have been, but she was on a news show saying that it was important that this happened because it brings a light to the rape crisis in colleges. And it's like, wait, did you not understand that it didn't happen? So it's not bringing a light to anything. It's actually fucking things up. And she didn't get that. And she is not the exception. She is much the rule of this sort of way of thinking. When you look at a lot of these people, they're like, oh, well, it didn't happen, but it's still important because, rape victims and the rape crisis and this, that, and the, and all this other stuff. So they, even when they're proven wrong, they still double down. They still reinforce these ideas and try to keep pushing these same fallacious arguments. And it's fucking crazy. It's just fucking crazy.
And I've watched people, like my friend that I keep bringing up, the 7 years in hell guy. I've watched people who have seen proof that the accusations against him were false still treat him differently.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
people that knew him.
It's like the newspaper stories coming out where it says that these 45 universities have had absolutely no rape accusations in the last 4 years. That only proves that the rape victims are being silenced.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
Yes, because nobody talking about it is indicative of it happening.
Yes.
Yeah. Well, the feminists have been doing that for years too. I mean, that is the basis for feminist research styles in government feminist research.
Well,
Feminist-led government research. That's what Mary Koss did when she decided to come up with that survey method where they ask questions, but they don't tell you what they're really asking about, and then they define your answers differently than maybe you would. And they use vague wording, and instead of saying, against your will, they say when you didn't want to, which could mean anything from when you didn't plan to, but you changed your mind, to when it wasn't your idea, it was the other person's idea, to like, I go to the doctor when I don't want to, but I want the treatment I'm going to get from the doctor, so I trade the time I don't want to spend to get that treatment, and I spend money I don't want to spend to get that treatment. And they're quid pro quo things that happen in the workplace sometimes, and it's a lot of women don't like having this admitted, but there are women that use their tits and ass to get ahead in the workplace.
Mm-hmm.
Not because they like doing that, but because it's effective, and it's terrible, but it doesn't make them victims if they do that on purpose. even if that's not the way they wanted to get the job.
Yep. Another thing is, real quick before moving on to the next one, I mean, this is just another example of journalism that is not really journalism as in so much as it is activism disguised as journalism. And activism disguised as journalism doesn't care about facts, it cares about narrative. Because the person engaging in the activism is working from an ideological standpoint. They already have a preconceived belief about the state of the world, especially with regards to what they're writing about. And now it's just a matter of making it fit into every story whenever the opportunity comes along to do so. And if this is the death of Rolling Stone, so be it, in my opinion. I mean, just that's just the way it is. I mean, if this is what, if it kills them financially, nobody buys their shit anymore, nobody goes to their website anymore, they lose their credibility, well then, yeah, too bad.
To be honest, I'm amazed the Rolling Stone didn't lose all their credibility when they put the Boston Marathon bomber on the cover.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, and it wasn't, oh, this is terrible what this guy did. It was, all these chicks love this guy.
Yeah, look at how hot he is.
Like, really?
Riddance to rot,
That's a whole
rubbish.
other animal
Okay.
right there, going into why women are attracted to serial killers and murderers. I don't know, but anyway. Let's go on to this. Children should be given access to pornography from the age of 5. In order to learn about rape culture, violence against women, this is a tool to teach boys violence against women. Is to have them watch porn. Well, here's a quote. Children are regarding porn as a lesson in how to have sex without the context or the understanding to view it as a fantasy, promoted by an industry that normalizes violence against women and girls.
I just want to first thing point out that the same entities that are, the official entities, the same entities that are wanting to expose 5-year-old children to porn will take your children out of your home or advocate taking your children out of your home if they get on your computer without your permission at that age and find porn on the internet. Exposure to porn is one of the things that can be used by child protective services in numerous countries to take your children out of the home. They don't give the parents a chance to explain to the child what the child found and why it's not something for the child to worry about right now, and that you don't have to think about that, or you don't have to do anything with that. That's grown-up stuff or anything like that. They don't have a chance to put this into context of fiction versus what people do together in real life, or anything like that. Nope, they just look at taking kids out of the home. They consider it child sexual abuse if your child gets exposed to porn in your home, but they want to expose your child to porn in school. And this is actually something that Lucian Valzen predicted and discussed. He's got a couple of videos up on his channel discussing this, and he talked about it at ICMI 16 in London. So one thing that I would recommend doing, go on YouTube and look up Lucian Valzen ICMI 16 London and listen to what he has to say about it, and find his channel. It's Freedom, I can't remember see if it comes up if Freedom Alternative is the name of his channel on YouTube. And take a look at some of the things that he's had to say about this and other world government activities. He's actually very he's up on a lot of things because he's fairly well traveled, got a lot of life experience that has led him to understand things that a lot of Americans, knowledge that a lot of Americans have been deprived of, or we've been lazy about acquiring. He has it. So I definitely, he's one of the most underviewed channels on YouTube. There are a lot more people should be watching his stuff.
Can I take you guys on a journey real quick?
Okay.
Can we go on a journey?
Let's get in.
When I was 5.
Let's get in the race.
Am I going to get car sick?
No, well, maybe.
Okay.
I hope not. I hope not.
Okay.
If so, we have a red pill that'll help you feel better.
Okay.
When I was 5 years old, I cared about Hot Wheels. I cared about Super Friends cartoon. I cared about waking up early on a Saturday morning and eating cereal and watching the cartoon block until about noon when it went into crappy, terrible movies that I couldn't care about. What fucking 5-year-old wants to or needs to know about porn? Like, I don't think things have changed so much in the last 37 years of life since I was 5 that there are kids that are 5 years old going on the internet looking for porn. I don't think that's a thing. I'm pretty sure that's not a thing.
Well, for some kids it is.
But I can't.
It's not.
I really can't imagine that there is a problem with this.
It's not a huge thing. And it's something that can happen completely by accident, though.
Well, that's what I'm saying.
If you screw up and don't have safe search on, there are crappy porn sites that put every word in the dictionary as their taglines or whatever to their search terms.
SLI or whatever it is.
So you go looking for a recipe for zucchini bread, and you find yourself on a website for toenail fetish porn. And it's like, what the fuck?
But what I was saying is, though, the overarching point here is that I don't think this is this is not like. This would be something if this was some sort of epidemic where this is just, happening constantly and there's just all these 5-year-olds running around jerking off all the time. But I really don't think that's the case. Okay. So here's the thing. Sexual education is a very important thing. I think it's very obvious, when we look at schools like where there's abstinence only education, the birth rates are higher among teens and so on and so forth. But so there's a definite argument to be made that sexual education is very important for developing healthy children that understand, how these sorts of things work and so on and so forth. But we're talking about 5-year-olds. We're talking about kids who who 99.7% are probably only interested in watching Dora the Explorer, whatever the fuck the kid show is that's going on right now that's got everyone's attention. The way this article has, it's like, it feels like they're taking something that is a very percentile of a percentile of a percentile issue, where, like you said, Hannah, where kids will stumble across something accidentally, and they're trying to turn it in for whatever reason. Like, I just can't even fathom the thinking behind this. Well,
they're turning it into a top-down thing too, because like kids before the internet, kids came across porn too. And it was relatively common. Not at 5. I mean, there's probably cases where it happened when they were 5. But usually,
I was pretty young when I found my first Playboy. So
I was 10. I remember it.
I've got to, just let me say something. I've got 4 kids, and they're all developing at very, very different rates. My 6-year-old is deeply in love with 2 girls in his class. Wants to marry both of them. Is very interested in kissing both of them. I've got an 11-year-old who still is not interested in the slightest. I've been having detailed fantasies about Raquel Welch since I was 5. Mm-hmm. So everyone develops at their different rate. I mean, I don't think the kids are going to be interested in some of the more sophisticated things on the internet, but they're certainly interested in playing doctor and playing mothers and milkmen and those sort of things.
Sure. And
if there was an epidemic, and I wouldn't call it that really, but if this was happening a lot, where kids were just obsessed with porn and sex, there would be a different alternative way to deal with that than exposing kids that hadn't been exposed to it. This is something that should be approached more in terms of wise use of your computer and teaching, society, just like there's been a distinct effort at educating adults. Keep poisonous things where your toddler can't reach them, put locks on your cupboards so your kid can't drink the bleach, and we have locks now on your television that you can keep your child from accessing certain channels without your permission, unless they're a little hacker. But there's no reason why that they would have to do this. This is, even if what they were trying to prevent was happening the way that they're claiming it happens, this would not be the appropriate. It's not the first approach that you should take.
Mm-mm. That's what I was.
Yeah, this is a bit of an overcorrection.
No, and also again, this is like, isn't this some shit that parents should be doing with their children? Not showing them porn at 5, but they should be involved with their kids. When it comes to issues of intimacy, and if they have crushes, and because I was, when I was 5, I had my first crush. I didn't understand it. Like I didn't really like understand like sexuality or anything. But I think that you have like you grow attracted to someone. And you're like, oh, I want to be around that person more, and then there was like, oh, I really want to kiss that person, like that's the pinnacle, like, oh my god, I've like achieved fucking absolution if I just kiss this girl on the lips, no less. And so, but yeah, I mean, usually that's something that you, as a child, you should be communicating with your parents, because as Kit says, children develop at different rates when it comes to their things like their sexuality and stuff, and so a parent knows that better than like some school or some teacher that is essentially trying to put her, again, she's putting activism where it does not belong, which is education. And this has been, obviously this is not new, because academia is basically activismemia now. It doesn't even do education. It's just it's just activism.
There's even another wrinkle too. Yeah, there's another wrinkle here too. There's so much talk over the last couple of years about misgendering and heteronormativeness and this and all this other kind of horse shit, right? Mm-hmm. And if something like this happened, there's going to be some kind of flaky motherfucker parent out there that's going to be like, well, they weren't showing my kid homosexual porn, and I'm going to sue them now.
They should see that. Like, they should see some tranny porn.
I'm fucking saying,
that's so cisnormative. I'm
joking about this?
No.
Yeah, I'm joking about this, but it's going to happen, because every day we make these jokes, and the next day we're proven right, because it fucking happens. Mm-hmm. And it's, oh god, this rabbit hole. It's so bad.
One more thing I noticed is that this article does not specify whether or not this is going to be done with a unisex classroom. It does say here, you put boys and girls together in a class, and you show them a pornographic film, and you analyze it in exactly the same way you teach them to read all the other cultures around them. Why?
Nah.
But like, go ahead.
We can't teach children that racism is bad by showing them how ugly it is portrayed in Huck Finn, and showing them Mark Twain's vision of the various things that make racism, especially overt racism, just fucking stupid. But we can show 5-year-olds porn.
Well, what type of porn? There are so many different levels.
Well, according to this, it talks about how exposing them to overly sexual messages and deviant sex. Now, and this is the woman that's supposed to be doing it, so I don't know how much knowledge she has about deviant sex with that chain on her glasses. But I'm guessing that because they talk about how it leads to sexual violence, and it makes to make sure that these kids understand the difference. So,
but it doesn't.
Non-violent sexual erotica leads to violence?
Sexual erotica in general does not lead to violence. It's been demonstrated that it not only does not lead to violence, but where it's more available, there is less violence.
But Hannah, feminists...
That's correlation. It doesn't mean that it reduces it, but it definitely shows that it doesn't prove or doesn't cause it.
Mm-hmm. No, I agree. I think that she's... It's this. This sounds to me too much like the sex-negative feminists that think that all porn is sexual violence, because some of it can be like, because some of it can be a little bit like, on the kind of grimier side, like if you're into the gonzo stuff or whatever you call it, where they, they just bring a girl in a room and then they just start banging her, and then they do like, stuff with the camera, and they play these sort of fantasies that are a bit more aggressive, hardcore stuff. But again, it's all consensual, and everybody involved knows, what they're doing. And people that want to watch that, they seek it out. It's not like it just, you're just sort of like on Google, like looking up Dragon Ball Z fucking fight scenes, and all of a sudden this porn shit pops up, right? So
that's what you get for looking it up on 4chan.
Yeah,
right.
Unless you're,
Here's the thing, though. I want to just have one quick last thought about this: is that people got too much fucking time on their hands. I mean, seriously, that's what shit like this tells me. That there are people out there that are just like these fucking spinster fucking squirrels running around in their heads, and they're just they're chomping at the bit to do something, and they have all this energy that they're not devoting to things of value. This has no value. Like you had said, Brian, this is something that, and Kid had said, this is something that, parents, these are the discussions parents should first and foremost have with their children.
Yeah.
At 5 years old, I think it's a little bit too early. And granted, like Kid said, there's different levels of development with children.
Yeah, but there's got to be a point where the academia and politicians and the media there's got to be a point at which they're out of your life. This is just them encroaching on more and more of your personal shit. I mean, come on.
Yeah.
It's time to get
becomes
mad.
a nanny state at this point. This is them trying to be parents via proxy. And this is not something that
here.
Oh, no, that's what I'm saying. It's a fucking nanny state. They're trying to turn everybody into subservient little fucking drones that do everything that they're told.
Yeah. It's a big agenda. This is not the only area of sex ed that they're doing that with.
Right.
And this is like the fight over sex ed gets oversimplified by a lot of people, and it's you think about the way students should be learning in school. Health classes are supposed to be about understanding your body and how it works, and how you can benefit your own health, how you can take control of your own health, and it's basically to give students the same type of foundation of basic knowledge for health purposes that, say, science classes and math classes are supposed to give you a foundation of basic knowledge for future work purposes. And the stupid thing about the sex ed argument is people are arguing about it in terms of whether or not who should be talking to kids about sexual processes. Well, that's not what sex ed is about in a lot of schools. It's about getting to your kids before you do,
right,
to act out an agenda on teaching them right and wrong with respect to sexual engagement and normal and abnormal and things like that. And it's right to teach kids how their bodies work. And your reproductive system is part of your body, duh. But it's not right to teach kids things that are not true or things that are not confirmed as if they are true or confirmed. And that's what's being forced into sex ed. So it would be right to teach kids, these are your parts, this is how they work, this is what's going to happen when you have sex, this is what's going to happen if an egg gets fertilized by a sperm. And the same thing with sexually transmitted diseases. They teach about those. That's correct. But turning around and saying porn causes rape in the classroom, or turning around and saying political things about abortion, I got no problem with them coming in and teaching kids in school, this is what abortion is, this is how it's done, this is the drawing version, bloodless drawing version of what an abortion looks like, because if they put a real one up in front of the kids, they'd all go home and have nightmares.
Well, Hannah, let me ask you something. Did you have that kind of education? Because we're the same age.
Not
did you have it?
What I had in school,
because I did have that, actually.
Well, what I had in school was very watered down. Now, they did do a really good job of, this is how things work, this is what will happen if you have sex, this is what can happen if you have sex, this is how the fetus grows, from embryo and all that. We got all of that.
Right.
And we got, this is what your birth control options are, this is how they work, this is your chance of getting pregnant if you use it wrong, this is your chance of getting pregnant if you use it right. We got all that. These are the sexually transmitted diseases, this is what they look like, don't get into this situation,
Right.
They did not let anyone come in and talk to us about abortion because I'm from a largely Catholic town. So I had to do a lot of my own research on that to form an opinion, and I was encouraged to do that research by, like, my family's pretty open about know what you're talking about before you decide on something. And of course, at 13 years old, I look up these procedures and I read about what gets done during these procedures, and it's a lot harder to bullshit a 13-year-old on something like that. I'm like, yeah, this is fucked up. This is not something that should just be done at the drop of a hat. And that sort of made up my mind on that topic. But that's not what gets done now. Now you get all this crap about morality from a political standpoint.
Right.
Not
That's
morality from hurting people on purpose or by accident is wrong, and you should avoid doing either one. Not that standpoint. But the standpoint of feminist ideology, and right. It's shoved down the students' throats now.
Well, that was kind of what I wanted to get at, because when I was in school, we had sex education, and it was a very unbiased, very sterile kind of. These are the facts. This is how things work. This is that. Da, 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 da. There wasn't any kind of ideology or any kind of force behind it that was trying to push anybody in any one direction. And that's like, so it's like when I hear about like the types of things that go on with sexual education today, where it has become this ideological standard bearer for people, where they're trying to push these certain ideas and certain aspects or, of their own agenda onto these kids. I'm just like, oh my God, this is so fucked up. It's like, it's so weird to me, because it's like, I feel like I got a pretty good education, growing up in the 80s and in the school system I was in. But then you see the stuff that's going on now, and it's like, oh my God. And then this, really, you want to teach porn to 5-year-olds? This is insane. Like, how do we get to this point? This is so crazy to me.
This is people with political ideals seeing this topic as a vehicle for their political viewpoint, to indoctrinate children with their political viewpoint without their parents' permission. And you can see both ends of that, because like, I'm sure there is a certain amount of people in my community where I grew up that would have been perfectly happy to have a priest come in or a nun come in and give an entire rundown on why certain aspects of birth control were wrong, or why abstinence was the only way and you shouldn't even think about the other things, or and it's not not to disparage any particular church. If that's the way they do things, that's the way they do things, but it doesn't belong in the school. Right. And it's not to say that you can't tell kids, abstinence, if it's used, not just tried, but used, it's 100% effective. If you don't have sex, you're not going to get pregnant.
Didn't work for Mary.
You don't get sexually transmitted diseases without biological fluids, bodily fluid contact. Those are cool things to tell kids. Just, it's not cool to say those are the only things that they can know.
I got to come in here. I went to a religious school, and I've really got to commend them. They did a good job. They brought in an external guy with the unbelievably unfortunate name of Mr. Horn, with an E on the end. And he there was no moralizing. He was friendly. He was approachable. He was all about the facts. And I've got to commend them on that. But I've got to ask here, how much is this a Western thing? Because I lived in Indonesia for a while, and at one stage I was staying in a village where I was the only white person, and I stood out like a sore thumb because I'm over 6'2", and I would go down to the river and have my shower in the morning and bath in the morning with the rest of the locals. And if you took a wrong turn in the forest, there were young men and women experimenting in various parts, and you saw nudity. Nudity was a normal part of life.
Well, you got to realize, you think about in the United States, the group of people most famous for colonizing here had a label. You remember what the label was?
The Puritans?
Yes. That should tell you everything you need to know.
Yeah, those people still exist.
Yeah. So I mean, we're still recovering from the attitudes that came along with that. And it's, what's funny is that they actually had ways that they knew how to party. They just were very limited in what they permitted. And here we've gone through this whole era of repeated ways of expressing Victorian mentalities. I mean, we can't even get a solid understanding of the fact that prohibition laws don't work. We did it with alcohol, and we got organized crime. We got massive amounts of death and destruction. We got, poisonous substances that were worse than what was already. We got bathtub gin, and it never got rid of alcohol use. So then we came along and decided to apply it to drugs. Abusing drugs is stupid. I went over this in another show. I'm not going to go on a rant again, but we did the same thing with drugs. We're doing the same thing with guns. Illegal gun use is wrong. Shooting people is wrong. But we aren't going to take the guns out of the hands of criminals by outline, because criminals do things that are illegal. They don't care if something is illegal. It doesn't stop them. But we haven't figured that out here. So we still have a lot growing up to do. And that's why we end up with this puritanical shit.
Yep. I guess shall we move on to we did this one. Harvard. Oh yeah. Harvard. The men's soccer team. They've been canceled because they like women. Canceled. Because they like to rape girls.
God.
All right, so
may I?
Yeah, Scott.
Or were you going to go, Brian?
Go ahead. No, I'm just going
to say real quick.
Okay.
Just real quick here is that, all right, we're talking about a team of people. We're talking about at least 12 to 15 people, probably more than that. And we don't know if all of them did this. We don't know, if this was a systemic thing. But now these people that may not have even been involved are going to pay the cost for some other people that have fucked up. I mean, yeah, it's dumb that they did it, but you know what? They're allowed to do stuff. They're adults. They can think and say and do whatever the fuck they want. But I think it's fucked up if there are people that are on the team that didn't have any involvement in this are losing the chance to do this thing, which is pretty fucking hard to do. I mean, these guys are in first place. That is not an easy accomplishment. So I know there's got to be at least one person on that team that had nothing to do with this that is like, motherfuckers, you fucked this for me. This could have been like, a really big opportunity, and now it's gone. So it's just, it's damning the whole for the actions of a few is never a way to deal with a situation. And that's what this is. It's, and mind you, I am extrapolating information. I'm assuming a bit here, but
yeah,
I have to imagine that there's at least one person on the team that didn't do this stuff. I mean, I hope anyway. I mean,
I agree with what you're saying. I don't think that anybody should have been penalized for doing this either, though. I think that what does this accomplish other than you piss everybody off that is on the team? You piss off anybody who might be watching, like, what the fuck is wrong with guys liking women and talking about it? Because women do this to guys too. They, there's a saying, if a girl has seen you naked, then her and all of her friends have seen you naked. So what? Like that, this is just what human beings do. We're sexual beings, and this is how we express ourselves. And I don't know, like, okay, here's the thing. If you are going to get offended at this, and you're going to say that this is something you would never do, fuck you off, you're lying, or you are the biggest prude on the planet. And that maybe you're like a unique kind of Puritan. All they're doing is saying, okay, this girl's this number 1 out of 10 or whatever, and then I guess there was like stuff about what sexual position would you like to have sex with her in? Well, do you realize that there's a high likelihood that a lot of the girls who were going to college were also thinking the same thing about the guys, especially the athletic ones that are like on teams and shit? You know what happens in real life, like these like professional athletes that just get tail like all day, and the women that throw themselves at them. This is a reality. This is what happens.
I'm just sitting here thinking about when I was in college and my friends and I started Ass Watchers Club. We used to rate on a scale of really, I guess you could say we went 5 to 10 because nobody got low ratings. We all like butts, but yeah, there was a 1 to 10 scale for hot asses, and I just am looking at this and the juxtaposition of this with recent revelations about Hillary Clinton's email and DNC emails and Podesta's emails and everything, and the degree of outrage that an email joke that went around among a set of athletes on a team versus the shit that came out of the DNC and the shit that came out of Hillary Clinton and the shit that came out of Podesta, and the people that supported them were like, well, you Russians, and didn't give a rat's ass about well, that's actually one of the least of the things that came out.
I know. Definitely worth
Hillary Clinton, and her Goldman Sachs speeches, she said to these rich people, ha ha ha, I say one thing to you guys and something else to all the poor people, and they buy it, ha! And that comes out, and people don't have the degree of outrage that they have. Oh, this is an email joke. It's an email joke. And these guys got something huge taken away because they were joking about women. And that's, and we say that women are the ones oppressed in society. I'll bet you if it was the reverse and this came out about guys and it was women that had been passing it around and somebody bitched about it, be like, loosen up, women's sexuality isn't dirty, women are allowed to be sexual, quit slut shaming these girls. But no, because it's men who were looking at women and who were fantasizing about women and joking around and talking, that's bad, and their sexuality is perceived as dirty. And they got something huge taken away from them that they only get one chance to go for.
Right.
Yeah.
So, somebody in the comments said something about, Sex and the City was on the air for how many seasons and people weren't crying about that. That was fucking definitely objectification from women to men. I mean, the idea is that we have a very uneven standard. And it's only situational. It's never consistent. It's never like, all right, this is okay, but it's not okay in this instance. But it's okay when these people do it because they're doing it because they're a special protected class of person. But this person can't do it because they're not the right color, they're not the right sex or whatever. There's just no fucking consistency to any of this stuff. Like you said, Hannah, it's like, Clinton makes a joke about this, but then about one thing, but then if somebody else makes it, like Mitt Romney made the same kind of joke when those videos were leaked of him. He was making the same sorts of jokes, and it was a fucking huge scandal. There's no consistency. It's about political and narrative expedience. It's about finding these things and beating them in, beating people over the head with them for a political purpose. That's all this is. There's each of you have said, this is kind of a dumb thing. It's like people are losing out because of this. It's a joke. It's whatever it is. But these are adults. We don't have to treat them like children. At this point, they're at Harvard. They're adults. I think we can pretty safely say they're adults, and it's okay if they're making jokes. I just and honestly, just reeks of a political agenda somebody's pushing just to be a fucking asshole, basically.
Well, it is academia.
As long as women are viewed as being victims of something like this, but it's okay when women do it to men. Women cannot call themselves equal to men because women are obviously much more fragile and therefore much less capable of handling real life situations than men.
Femininity.
So these women need to man up and get the fuck over it.
That's right. Stiff upper lips.
We actually discussed. I discussed this on Sunday night after the screening, actually, about how women dress up for other women and not for men, because men really don't care whether we've got 3 feet of makeup on our faces. But we quite easily tear each other down. So she's too fat, she's too thin, she doesn't have enough makeup on, she's got too much on, she's ugly, she's too pretty, her boobs are too big, her boobs are too small. We tear each other down, and we're all okay with it. And then a man turns around and says, "Oh, she's got a great set of tits or a great ass," and it's all of a sudden, "Oh my God, I've been objectified." You can't win.
You know, 9 times out of 10, it's another woman that gets pissed off. Oh, you said she's got a great set of tits. You monster.
And at my age, if somebody says I've got a great set of tits, I take it as a compliment. It's
Somehow you do have a great set of tits.
It's like, woohoo, I've still got it, and I'm old.
Yeah.
All right. I'm not going to argue with that, Sir Skeptic. I don't know. So I guess the proof is in the pudding, and you would know.
Yeah, we'll come at the corset on Sunday.
That's cool.
I wanted to look at some of the quotes from this article that I found interesting. So the women, 6 of the women that were rated in the report expressed disappointment with the men's soccer team and with a culture that permits widespread objectification of women in the Harvard Crimson last week. Quote, having considered members of this team our close friends for the past 4 years, we are beyond hurt. What the hell is beyond hurt? To realize these individuals could encourage, silently observe, or participate in this kind of behavior, and for more than 4 years have neglected to apologize until this week, women wrote. So wait, I hope that, because these are supposed to be like first-year students at the university. So if you've
You know what?
Go ahead, Hannah.
I was wrong. These women have been victimized. Somebody taught them to be weak.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, somebody taught them to be unable to deal with this on a adult level. It's like for them to express that, like they literally got hurt by something harmless. They've actually adopted pain that they didn't need to experience because they've been taught to treat something that doesn't cause them any damage as if it's damaging.
Were the women on the sports team actually the ones to complain, or did someone complain for them?
It sounds like somebody got a hold of this email and made it public, and
that's bad
demonized it, and then the girls responded the way that they've been taught is appropriate to respond to this.
Okay.
By the way, this is Harvard, one of the Ivy League schools, like one of the most prestigious schools in the United States.
Man, I hope none of those women are studying things like law and medicine or any other highly competitive field where they're going to have to go someplace and strive to reach the top of their professional area and compete with people that are going to say things they don't like. Mm-hmm. Because if they're taught that they don't have to handle that when it's somebody saying stuff that's not even really important in school. Because it's not like these guys joke about stuff like this, but if these girls are shocked, that means these guys never treated them in such a way as to make the girls think that they had this stuff on their mind.
You're gonna
which
love
means
this.
It was a momentary stinking joke.
You're going to love this part, Hannah. The women, Kelsey Clayman, Brooke Dickens, Alika Keene, Emily Mosbacher, Lauren Varela, and Haley Washburn. I can already imagine like all of their numbers and how they're slightly different and why. Graduated in 2016 and had seen the entire scouting report. Quote, this document attempts to pit us against one another as if the judgment of a few men is sufficient to determine our worth, end quote, they said. Quote, but men, we know better than that.
Oh, for Pete's sake.
I'm pretty sure the document was never intended for their eyes.
No.
Do they really think that their value can be affected by a joke like that? Like this is, they're going to walk into a professional situation where they got to compete with somebody, and the moment somebody doesn't say, you did a fabulous job, you're getting another promotion today, they're going to go home and be wrecked emotionally and sob and not understand how to handle it. Like, is that what we're raising? Is that feminism? Is that how we make our strong, independent women today? Because, like, that's just bullshit. You might as well be breaking their legs.
Yeah, you can see them in the corporate world. Someone comes up and says, "So, your big presentations today, is it? Yeah. Have you put on weight? See ya."
Head explodes.
Oh my gosh.
With the suspension, the team must forfeit the remaining regular season and postseason competitions. We are beyond disappointed that our season has ended this way, but we respect the decisions made by our administration, said men's coach Peter Leher in a statement. Actions have consequences and character counts. We accept responsibility for our actions, and I know that we will use the experience of this terribly unfortunate situation to be better. Harvard's women's soccer team is still scheduled to play Columbia on Saturday.
Okay, wait. These kids are leaving, right?
Yeah.
This is their last year, so it's like,
No, they're
how are they
leaving.
going to be better? Yeah,
Yeah.
they're graduating. This
Yeah.
is done. There's not going to be
The girls
any
that
better
are
next
gone
time.
too. Like the girls are they're graduating now. They're leaving now, so they weren't even, or at least for I guess some of the women on the list, because
Right.
I think they were also rating like some first year students as well.
Yeah,
But
I
like
mean, there's probably a
this is
difference in
this
like,
You
is
are
so
in
nice
college,
there.
so they're all adults. you
Yeah.
know.
I don't know.
Yeah, I just think it's unfortunate. It's like we don't have the details of the scouting report handy. I don't think anyway. I haven't seen them anyway. But I think it's. I have to imagine that there are some people on this team that didn't have anything to do with this. This wasn't anything that they had any part in, and they're having to pay the cost for it. I think this is fucking ridiculous. And is it dumb? I mean, yeah, it kind of is. But whatever. It's like you guys have said. It's like we've all done this. We've all looked at other people and we objectify other people because we are humans and we are objects. We are sexual beings. This is just something that we do. And unless this was a list where these guys were like, all right, well, we're going to go to a party and we're going to rape this girl, or we're going to do this, or we're going to single this person out for sexual, to push sexually upon in some way, it's what the fuck is the problem? It's just like telling jokes. It's like, oh man, that girl's so cute. She's got a nice butt.
that's all
We're in
Yeah,
the Law and
that's
Order
whatever.
episode about that.
Look,
Yeah, I'm
Scott,
sure there is.
At least once, look, it's like this, Scott. At least once a week when we do this show, a
Yeah.
female celebrity comes up, and then you or I or both of us will say, "Oh man, that girl! I don't care what you say, she's hot." That's the same
Right.
thing, right?
Oh,
and
you're right.
what I think is
Guilty as charged.
there's a couple
But
things
that's
here.
not
Yeah, this is-
objectifying.
that's
That's
not-
appreciating an aspect of
It's
them.
actually
Yeah.
humanizing.
Yeah.
You don't mistake her for a toaster.
Yeah, I think that the thing is, too, one of the reasons why this is a big deal is I bet it has a lot to do with the timing. Because the Harvard Crimson, which is the school newspaper, they wrote the article, and then the Guardian swept in and decided to essentially write an article about the article. And that gave the article way more exposure. Otherwise, this would have been a college newspaper article that only people who went to Harvard would have seen and gave a shit about, and then they probably wouldn't even care as much. But also recognize that this is coming on right around the time of this. I hate to bring this up because I don't want to do it, but it's true. It's about the election. It's about the election because in the Harvard Crimson they say locker room talk is not an excuse because this is not limited to athletic teams. The whole world is a locker room. Yet in it we feel blessed to know many men who do not and would never participate in this behavior out of respect for women. To them we are grateful. Blah 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 blah. Note at the
They're
top
having to pay the price for this.
And note at the
yet
top
they're
here
having
it
to pay the
says
price for
"Stronger Together" at the top of the Harvard Crimson, which is the Hillary slogan. So this is political. And then the Guardian, they swept in and they were like, "Oh shit, we can use this too, and we can make the same argument, and we can talk about rape culture." I'm surprised that Trump's name doesn't come up in this article, but I know that that's what the allusion is for, because while they would probably have talked about this for rape culture reasons anyway, see, Mattress Girl and all this other shit that came before it, I think it's supercharged at this point. And so it's got more potential for clicks, which is really what the Guardian gives a shit about.
Well, Brian, give them some time. I'm sure they'll do it. I'm sure they will do it. I mean, like you said, this is the Guardian. This is their MO. So it's just a matter of time. Just give them a day. Give them 2 days.
Well,
Well,
yeah.
for the weekend.
The funny thing about this is every time they do this, every time they make a big deal about something like this, and they talk about this consequence was faced, and everybody's all outraged over this terrible, terrible behavior, they prove, once again, that we do not live in a rape culture. We do not live in a culture of tolerance for sexual violence against women. We live in a culture where discussing sexual violence against women, or calling something that isn't sexual violence against women elicits so much outrage from people for or on behalf of the women in question that there's always a big hullabaloo. And it's very clear that there is no tolerance, even for the implication of sexual violence against women. So we don't live in a rape culture. We live in a culture where there is no tolerance for even... In fact, we live in a culture where there is no tolerance even for normal male sexuality, much less rape.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. One other thing, too, before I want to talk about another reaction to this story. The Young Turks talked about this, and I oddly enough, it's probably like the only time I agreed with Jank on something. Because he said this is... Yeah, because Jank was defending the soccer team and thought that the ruling or what had happened to them was too extreme.
You know why, right?
No, I don't know why.
Because Jank is a fucking sports ball guy. He fucking loves the sports, so he's gonna fucking go with those guys.
Yeah, sure. But Anna...
Good job, guys.
Anna Kasparian.
Yeah, exactly. You know, come on. He's a fucking meathead. We've seen it for fucking years.
But Anna Kasparian was losing her shit, and she was the one that was being like really emotional in this exchange.
You know what? I find that hard to believe.
Did she call him a fat fuck?
Yeah. She didn't, but she got feisty because the most of the men, or most of the panelists, there was like 3 guys, I think, or 2 guys and Anna, and the guys on the panel were just like, you know, it was rude and probably not nice, but I don't think they deserved that as a penalty. That was basically where they sat. They're trying to find that comfortable space between allowing it and, you know, defending what seems to be a clear overreach of authority, probably for the sake of essentially satisfying the women folk. You know, like they probably did it so that the because I don't think even though the coach has a thing that he says where he's like, oh, it's really unfortunate that he was probably really fucking pissed that happened. You know, but he can't express his grievance because it would make him look like a rape apologist, etc., etc.
Well, they'd probably call for his fucking removal too.
Yeah,
though.
and
he's got to protect his job.
He's got to protect his job. So he just capitulated.
Yeah, he can't go against Harvard. He can't be seen as going against the administration, basically.
No, right, exactly.
No,
so,
and even if he could be seen as going against the administration, he can't be seen as going against the female opinion on this.
Yeah.
And female privilege is reacting to something that is stupid and petty as if it was malicious and damaging, and being taken seriously and not being made fun of for it on a professional level, you know, by the authorities. That the authorities actually have to, okay, well, this is malicious and damaging because the women said so. You know, that's female privilege. Like, once again, if you turned this around and the gals had an email joke like that got circulated and it got exposed, and the guys reacted to it the way the gals are reacting to this, people would laugh them out of the school. There would be no taking them seriously if they treated something petty and stupid as if it was malicious and damaging.
Yeah. So, anyway, yeah. So Anna got pissed, probably because she might be rated a 7 or something, and probably only does missionary. So. Did I just rate and then tell her position out loud? That's what I think. It would probably, and then you'd have to like ask for, you know, consent for every thrust, and it would just take forever. And no, sorry, Anna. And she's getting, you know, I could see the MGTOWs are going to come out and they're going to agree with me. The wall is coming. The wall is coming, and Anna cannot fight it.
If you asked her oral, she'd probably start like fucking bobbing her head around and snap her fingers, go, "Oh no, you did!"
Yeah.
Oh my god.
She'd probably, like, if you wanted to do oral to her, she'd say, "Get off the," you know, you'd have to demand that she get off her face or his face or something. My face. I don't know. You somewhat thin fuck. Anyway, so yeah, there was
this
that.
is going to be quote mined like nobody's business.
I know. Do it! Come at me,
Cool.
bro. I'm
Yeah,
fucking
yeah.
around. Anyway. So, yeah, we should probably wrap up the show. I think that's it, unless anybody has any other thoughts about this Harvard story. I don't know if any of you guys put your names in, so not much else to say.
I've actually had people that know the schools I attended kind of, disparage them a little bit, even though, one of them was a private school. It's not Harvard, it's not Yale and everything. And this is what Harvard is turning out. And
Yeah,
I have
just
to
like
lose a lot of respect for Harvard there.
Ivy League schools
This level
are
of
the worst.
special snowflake-osity, it really takes the opinion of Harvard University down quite a bit.
Mm-hmm. Wasn't the number one competitor, which was Yale? I think it was like Harvard, Yale. They're like the top two, and Yale's the place where the Halloween costume. This is not about
Right.
No,
an
this is
intellectual
about making
space.
a
It's
home
about
here.
making a home here. That's Yale. So I mean, not much better. And then like Dartmouth, I think they have their own sets of problems with like the way they conduct themselves and the debate teams and how they're making it all about race and white privilege and shit. This is all the academics are going down the toilet, and it probably has a lot to do with the fact that colleges think that the somebody believes that the answer to creating a more educated society or a more intelligent society is to put more people in education that probably don't have any business in education.
Yeah.
Yeah, and these
That's
were
the
once institutions of intellectual development,
Right.
and now they are institutions of intellectual damage.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
These were institutions that were supposed to be the bastions of higher learning. These were supposed to be the places that one aspired to be the best, to be the most, the most intelligent, the most learned, and that you would go out into the world and change it for the better. But what we're seeing now is this degradation of our, academic system, where to be a special snowflake is something to aspire to be offended by everything is something to aspire to, and to turn off your critical faculties and the way you look at things critically through a lens that is not smeared with fucking Vaseline and just distorts everything. It's to look at things critically. We're not seeing that. We're seeing that vanish. We're seeing that the idea of aspiring to a higher level being something that is good, something that is lauded as it's taking a backseat to feels.
Mm-hmm.
It's taking a backseat to, but I feel like this is bad and I feel emotionally triggered and yeah, but no, how about you look at these things analytically, look at them in a way that's jeez, it's just so crazy. We're in fucking bizarre world. We're in the Berenstain universe, I believe it is, where we're supposed to be in the Berenstain universe. It's just like,
We're in the Berenstain universe.
we're in the Stain.
I don't know. See, I didn't have those books as a kid. I had other books, but to me, if there is no better evidence than shit like this towards that. It's not really a conspiracy theory, because there's KGB agents from when I was a kid and from beyond, from farther back, that are coming out and saying this, that social justice and progressivism, the way that they are in politics today, are there specifically to weaken this country.
Mm-hmm.
That's the whole purpose of social justice. It's not to help people. It's not to make people's lives better. It's not to bring us together. It's not to end discrimination. It's not to do any of those things. It's to weaken our society and stupefy our youth and make it more difficult for us to remain an independent nation. That's all it exists for. And it's achieving that incrementally in our universities with shit like this.
Well, you know what? That's so weird to me, though, is because when I was growing up, when I was a teenager, I wasn't a social justice warrior like as is the common parlance today, but I did things in that arena. Like I worked the AIDS quilt in '96 in DC. I fucking did charity work. I worked with Food Not Bombs, feeding and clothing homeless folks. I did all this.
Well,
kind
that's
of
real
stuff
activism, though. That's
Well,
not
that's what I'm saying.
voyeurism. That's actually doing things that are compassionate to help people.
Right, but what I'm saying is, though, it's like that was social justice back then. That was like helping the socially disadvantaged. That was, but now it's been, turned into this whatever the fuck it is now. This fucking gross
Back
discussion where there's nobody actually helping anybody.
So what you were doing was civil service.
Yeah, no, that's
the
actually probably
difference.
a good way of looking at it. Yeah,
It's the difference between civil service and social justice. Civil service is volunteering at your local food bank or your local homeless shelter, or to be a candy striper in a nursing home, where somebody actually needs you. And social justice is standing outside the homeless shelter and yelling into a megaphone that they don't do enough for women in the homeless shelter. Where 90% of the people that live there because they can't find any place to couch surf are men.
Right.
All right. Well, thanks, Hannah and Scott, for those words. Does anybody else have any final thoughts, or I think I'm just going to close the show out. I think we've gone 2 hours. It's good, but Natalie just unmuted herself. Natalie.
Yeah.
I didn't know if you wanted to say something because I saw you unmuted yourself.
No. Kids said get ready to say goodbye, so.
Yeah.
Stand by.
Do you guys have anything you wanted to say, or or shill or whatever before I close the show out?
I just want to say that Natalie's got a big nerd crush on Hannah.
Aw.
Freaking kill you.
Aw. I think you guys are awesome. You guys achieved something really great, and
I'm so not blushing.
That is. But yeah, it's amazing what you guys had to go through to get this done, and I have to applaud every bit of your effort.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
It was very exciting.
Yeah, it sounded like it.
And good on you guys for seeing it through, because some people would have just said, fuck it, they've taken away the venue and we can't do anything. So good on you for seeing it through.
Yeah.
Cheers.
Definitely.
I came in very late in the game and did very little. It was all the guys behind the scenes that did more than everything. I just was the bitch.
You are awesome.
All right. Well, I'm going to show the handshake. Doesn't show the link, but this is the secret handshake that was necessary to get to go to the Melbourne screening. So you guys might want to watch this. I'll play the music a little bit low, so it's not like too intrusive. This is how we're gonna close the show out, and I want to thank Scott and Max. Sorry, Max, he had to drop out because he was having internet problems. Thank Hannah. Wish happy birthday to Mike's dad, who I, for whatever reason, imagine with like a larger Ushanka than Mike's for some reason. Like an epic one with like a feather on top or something. And I want to thank Natalie and Sir Skeptic, or Kit, for coming on the show to talk about the Melbourne thing.
Melbourne!
Melbourne, yes.
Melbourne.
It's
Melbourne.
Don't worry, Hannah, the URL's not showing to the people watching. It's only showing to us. So no sweat. And I want to thank you guys, the listeners, for joining us on the show. And if you guys have any thoughts, please leave a comment on the secret handshake, on
needs more butt touching.
The show topics. I know there should have been more butt touching.
More butt touching.
I was expecting some pussy grabbing myself.
Yeah,
We were going to have that in there.
I was waiting.
Oh, hold on. You did that to me on Sunday night when we practiced at the venue.
That would have been hilarious.
We were totally going to have that in there, but we thought that, there may be some non-gay guys coming and they might be uncomfortable meeting each other. And
Oh, how thoughtful.
Well, it could have been more butt touching, though. I'm just saying. In the future, keep that in mind. More butt touching.
Now, what you just need to do is have everybody bring little cheap stuffed animal kitty cats and hold them up by the scruff of the neck that symbolize the pussy grabbing.
oh, that's not bad.
Yeah, touche.
There you go.
Plus,
All right.
that would be adorable.
Okay, so guys, thanks again for coming on the stream and joining us on the Polecat Cast. Excuse me, and we will talk to you next week when we have another one of these